This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty, Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the new and improved Cannon Fire Podcast. We are back at you today for episode 111. It's draft week. This is our official pre-NFL draft show. We're just 2 days away from the draft. Can you believe that, Evan? It's crazy, man. For those of you who are new around here, I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew. Joined alongside me, as always, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucs fan himself, Mr. Evan Wanish. Evan, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing pretty good. Be ready because, like you said, it's 2 days away, but these 2 days are going to feel like 2 weeks, so.
Oh, yeah. Rumors and speculation are flying around anywhere and everywhere. You've got anonymous GM scouting reports coming out of some of the most ridiculous things that you could ever hear. But we're going to dive into all of that today. We've got a lot of good stuff lined up today for our draft special. Of course, we've got Evan's big mock draft. A lot of people are looking forward to that. What have you got cooking up for the people regarding the draft?
Well, I do a round one mock draft normally, but on this show I'm just going to be doing the top 15, so it won't include the entire first round, but I have some picks that might surprise some people, but obviously everybody knows who like 1 and 2 is, but I think once you get to like 4 with the Giants, I think it's really where it gets interesting. So
yeah, it looks like you got your jersey, huh?
I did. I got it. What was that? I believe last Thursday, I think.
I was so mad at you because you told me it was coming, right? I knew you were going to get it. I knew for the time the next episode rolled around, you'd be able to wear it. But you sent me a picture of your Brady jersey on your kitchen floor.
Yeah.
Like it was spread out on the floor, and you're like, look what came in the mail today. And I'm like, look what you just ruined in the first 5 minutes of getting it in the mail by putting it on your dirty-ass floor.
Yeah.
TB12 deserves better.
Like I said, that day, the lighting was the best in the kitchen, and couldn't put it on the table. So, hey, it was on the floor for 15 seconds.
All I hear are excuses.
Well,
dirt and germs, coronavirus all over your jersey now.
Yeah, trust me. Yep.
Speaking of our starting quarterback, we've got a little bit of Bucs news before we really deep dive into the NFL draft. Tampa Bay quarterback Tom Brady. The guy just wants to work out, right? Right now, the world is a crazy place. Everybody's being forced to stay home, and Tom Brady, living in Tampa, is under that same safer-at-home guidelines, but he's still got to get his work in. He's looking for a place to work out. He was cited in a Tampa Bay park. Now, not cited, as in served a citation. He was seen in a Tampa Bay park working out. Here is the story. Tampa Mayor Jane Castor said in a joint news briefing with St. Petersburg Mayor Rick Kreisman on Monday that a city employee spotted a man working out in a park in downtown Tampa. Now, if I had to guess, this was Curtis Hickson Waterfront Park. It's probably the most scenic park in downtown Tampa. You're looking right at the water across his University of Tampa. It's very photogenic. So I have to imagine Tom Brady out there with a social media team. They were having a field day, right? Thinking of all the good content they could get. Well, the worker walked up to Tom and said, our parks are closed down, so a lot of our park staff, they portal around just to make sure people aren't in there with contact sports and things going on, is what Jane Castor continued to explain. She went over to tell him that the park was closed, and the guy working out was Tom Brady. So we have a Tom Brady sighting in Tampa, but unfortunately he's getting kicked out of public places for working out when he should be at home isolating. What do you think? What if you were just walking...
I'm surprised he hasn't had like a thing installed in Jeter's house.
Yeah, right? You would think with all the room that he has in Jeter's house, there has to be some room for him to really get some work in. I mean, there's probably a room in that house big enough to just lay down some turf and call it a day, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, he's like, Jeter himself might even have some like training stuff there.
Yeah, I have to imagine. But hey, it is what it is. I'm just glad he's out and about, taking a look at the city. Downtown Tampa, beautiful place, and I'm glad he is making the most of it, at least before he got kicked out of there. But that's our Tom Brady update this week.
And speaking of which, I'm not a jersey guy, so
yeah.
Take this in, because you likely won't see me wear this jersey again, like on air.
Oh, come on. You got to throw that bad boy on again every now and again.
Maybe a special occasion. So the draft episode is a special occasion. So when you see me wear the jersey, that's when you know it's a special occasion, I guess. But yeah, I will admit, though, Rhett, that it's something about, maybe, I don't know if they changed how they're made or whatever. You know how I said, like, the reason I'm not real, like, huge jersey guys is, like, how baggy they feel on me?
Yeah.
You know, here, it's not as baggy as I remember them being. Like,
and if you're watching on our video on YouTube, you're getting a really in-depth analysis breakdown of Evan's jersey. He's showing you the fabric, the different cuts, the stitching.
The stitching and everything. I'm describing it in terms, and like, it's weird. There's, like, stuff, like, right here that I don't remember being on the last jersey. Like, I don't know if you guys can see that, but
like the stitch in front of the shoulder where it meets the chest.
Yeah, and that like makes it a little bit tighter, so it's not like as baggy. Like, it's not like you can still like move around, but I don't know, it's nice. And you got obviously the black ship on there.
Nice. I like the blacked out pirate ship. I think that looks tight.
Yeah, it's nice. But jersey, like I said, it turned out nice, and a lot of people were asking me, like, you know, why'd you get yours already? Well, I think, you know, since technically I pre-ordered mine before they were released, before the design was released, so I think that's sort of why.
Yeah. Thanks for rubbing it in for all of us who can't get their jerseys until September and October.
Hey. I'm just saying. You were the one that was like, you were like, oh yeah, I'm ordering a jersey today. And I was like, okay, I probably won't. You were like, oh, come on. I was like, okay, then I will. And I did. And I asked you, did you order one? You said no.
Yeah, I know. Look at where we are now. So let's move on. We got a few more rumors to uncover before we jump into the draft. This one, I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but I wanted to at least mention it because there's a lot of people out there who still seem to think that this is going to happen, and we just want to confirm it. The Buccaneers are not expected to trade for Leonard Fournette. That's not going anywhere. I don't think Fournette would be a very good fit for Tampa Bay, and I'm glad to see that there's no developments on that.
Yeah, I never, even when he was coming out of LSU, I was never a huge fan of Leonard Fournette. Had him graded as my third running back that year behind Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook. But I mean, you know, you'd be looking at probably given it wouldn't be a whole lot like groundbreaking stuff, but like probably a 4th round pick, maybe a 5th round pick, and then you know, a guy that's essentially a 1-year rental basically. I don't see the point. I don't think he would at this point. I know he's 25 years old, but I just don't. I think they're better off drafting a younger back, you know, with more tread on his, less tread on his tires, I should say.
Yeah. I gotcha. So let's move on from that saga. That's pretty much everything that needs to be said regarding Leonard Fournette. Again, I don't think this is going to go anywhere. So let's get into the meat and potatoes, what we're all here for. This is the draft special. Let's talk about it, damn it. So we're going to follow up some rumors with some more rumor talk. This, of course,
which is all it is this time of year. So.
Yeah, exactly. Smoke screens are everywhere. Teams are putting out reports to kind of fish away talent, you know, make certain things look a certain way. It's everything you got to be prepared for this time of year. Even more on Twitter now because everything's so isolated. It's not like a coach can say something in a press conference that, you know, he can't say on Twitter now. But let's jump into it. So there are rumors swirling around that Tampa Bay, on their big board, have Mekhi Becton as OT1 and Jonathan Taylor as RB1. What does that mean for the first round? What does that mean for the Bucs?
Yeah, so basically for the first round, I think for the first round basically means, you know, we're looking at Becton, right? I don't really think in the first round that you'd be looking at Jonathan Taylor unless they would trade down, maybe. Then maybe Jonathan Taylor is an option in the first round. But I think in the first round at 14, you're looking at Mekhi Becton. And the rumor, like I said, Scott Reynolds put out his like little draft insider thing, and in there he said that Tampa Bay covets offensive tackle from Louisville, Mekhi Becton, the most out of all four. He said that they have high grades on pretty much the big four, and even Josh Jones out of Houston, but. They like Becton the most, and a lot of NFL teams like Becton the most. Not necessarily because of. This is gonna sound really dumb because people would be like, okay, then why should he be a first round pick? A lot of NFL teams like Becton not because of what he's done, but what they think he can do.
Right.
The potential there, he might have the highest ceiling out of any of the offensive tackles. If we're talking about ceilings and potentials, he's probably a top 5 player in the class. He's just so big and he can move so well. Jonathan.
Is that why, when it comes to Mekhi Becton, is that why a lot of people that I have seen are referring to him as like a project pick, quote unquote, like something that you're going to have to take on that you can ultimately try and get the most out of later on down the road?
Yeah, so a project pick to me is something where somebody isn't going to start. And somebody who's not going to start, if you did start him, wouldn't be that great.
Right.
I think Mekhi Becton can have success as a starter immediately. I just think that he's not going to be he's not as pro ready as some of these other tackles. But he might be 4 years down the line, he might be the best tackle out of this whole class.
Right.
So there's some talk of them possibly trading up for a tackle. I'm not sure. Maybe they really like Becton and they want him. They move up for him, or they just sit at 14 and hope he's there. Or if not, take whatever. But right now I have him as my OT4, but it's just I like all 4 of them, including Josh Jones. So I like Jedrick Wills, I like Tristan Wirfs, Andrew Thomas, Mekhi Becton. I like all those guys, and it's no real downside on Becton, but there is more risk involved with Becton than those other 3 guys, and maybe even Josh Jones. I think Josh Jones is a fairly safe pick. The only thing with him is that the level of competition he played against wasn't the greatest.
I feel like Josh Jones at 14, though, would be a reach.
A lot of people have him mocked 18 to the Dolphins. And since this is a top 15 mock for me, I'm going to tell you right now, I have him at 18 to the Dolphins. So, I mean, what's the difference? If 4 years from now, if he's, a starter, a solid starter, what difference is it going to make if he was drafted 14th or 18th?
Right.
That at the end of the day, that's the big thing. And a lot of people who are in favor of trading up in a draft for a tackle, maybe to 9 or so, are going to basically say, well, if Mekhi Becton's the best left tackle or right tackle in the NFL in 4 years, what does it matter if he was drafted 9 or 14? If you told the Buccaneers, hey, I'm a fortune teller, Mekhi Becton is going to be the best left tackle out of this whole draft class, don't move up for him. And,
yeah.
Now, they won't care, but there's certainly more risk involved with Becton than the other 3.
And let's say this for argument's sake, it seems like the consensus is that the Bucs are going to take an offensive tackle round 1. It seems like it's what makes the most sense. Now, we know at draft day that what makes the most sense isn't always what actually happens, but let's go into it with the mindset that the Buccaneers are picking an OT at pick 14. If you're looking at Mekhi Becton and Josh Jones, both of those guys who were, safe picks, but not number 1 on a lot of people's boards. Do you think looking at those guys, having their sights set on Becton and Jones, can potentially leave them not wanting to trade into the top 10? Do you think they have a better chance of, I'm assuming Jones will be there at 14, but do you think with Becton being where he is, there's a better chance of him falling to 14, or are the Bucs still going to be interested in moving up into the top 10?
Well, I think, like you said, Josh Jones is definitely, he'll be there. But Becton's a different story because, you have, I'm looking at it right now, you got the Browns there at 10, you got the Jets there at 11, maybe even the 49ers at 13. could possibly want a guy like him.
Yeah.
Giants at 4, Chargers at 6 if they don't go quarterback. The Cardinals at 8, who knows, right? Who knows what grades these teams have on Becton. Even the Dolphins at 18 if they wanted to move up ahead of the Bucs. The 49ers are rumored to want more picks.
I think if the Dolphins move ahead of the Bucs, they're getting a quarterback.
I think that they moving ahead of the Bucs because they want an offensive tackle. And they think that the Bucs are definitely going to take one. So, like, let's say they have a high grade on Mekhi Becton, and Mekhi Becton's available at 13, and they know that the Buccaneers are going to pick Mekhi Becton. I think that's where they could possibly make a move. But there was a failed drug test that came out over the weekend for Mekhi Becton.
Did we ever get confirmation on what that was? I heard it was a diluted sample.
I haven't heard any confirmation on what exactly it was.
Okay.
However, I don't think teams are very worried about it because Ian Rappaport basically tweeted out today that, Mekhi Becton's still, OT1 on some teams' boards. So, don't really think that matters. But, like I said, there's more risk with Becton than Jones, I think, but there's also way more upside with Becton. So It's really high risk, high reward thing there. But it'll be interesting to see. Moving on to Jonathan Taylor really fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just don't see them picking a running back in the first round unless, let's say, a team like Philly looking for a wide receiver right in front of Denver, the Bucs are. Let's say Philly calls and they want to move up. Maybe you move back to 21, and if Josh Jones isn't there, maybe you pick a running back then. But sitting at 14, I just don't see Taylor as an option. I think in the second round, I think if he's there, they might take him.
Now, let's get into Taylor and just the running back rankings overall. Now, on our last episode, which was also a draft-themed episode, if you have not listened to it, make sure you do it. We've got Trevor Sikkema of the Draft Network. It really was a good conversation that we had between the three of us. But we kind of got into things saying, seriously doubt the Bucs are going to take a running back round 1. It would almost be a mistake if they did. Let's look at round 2 where they have pick number 45. The running back rankings, because I know that you do not have Jonathan Taylor ranked above guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire and DeAndre Swift. Am I right? But I think out of the big 5 running backs, any one of those guys could be a stud. So
I like all 5 of them.
Okay. Now, when it comes to, I guess, where they are in the draft, there was a report that came out today. It seems like the sweet spot for running backs is going to be right at the end of the first round. I saw something that said picks 26 through 33-ish are going to be chock full of running backs. Obviously, this is stuff you hear days before the draft. Could not be true, but I'm just picking up what I've seen on Twitter. What do you make of all of that? And at the end of the day, would you be happy with Taylor, or would you prefer one of the other guys?
Well, I would prefer one of the other guys, but that's just my rankings, But, we'll see who's available. I think the what Rappaport said, basically we have 26 to 32 being that sweet spot. I think it begins with Miami at 26. They desperately could use some help at running back. I know they signed Jordan Howard, but they could use another guy there. Maybe that's a spot for Jonathan Taylor. Maybe that's a spot for DeAndre Swift. Then you got the Chiefs at 32. They could use a running back as well. They always like weapons. Maybe they want DeAndre Swift or Jonathan Taylor. I think Swift probably fits the Chiefs more than Taylor would. But, who knows, right? Out of all the running backs, I would say that Taylor and Swift are probably the only 2 I think that could go in the first round. I think the rest of them are going to go in the second round. Wouldn't surprise me, though, if we only saw 1 or maybe no running backs in the first round. If there's no running back selected in the first round, that'd be music to the Bucs ears because that would almost guarantee that they're going to end up with somebody they like. So,
yeah,
I've heard that they're not huge fans of J.K. Dobbins just because he can't pass block. I know a few other places that report that as well. I don't know where they have Cam Akers, but I think they like Cam Akers. I think they like DeAndre Swift. I know that they really like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I know that they really like Jonathan Taylor. So we'll see what happens there. But, I think the max running backs in round 1 is 2, but I expect probably 1 to go.
Now, let's say worst case scenario, right? Because you always have to plan for just a nightmare scenario for Tampa Bay. Let's say they're sitting at 45 and all of the big 5 running backs are taken. What's the move?
I'll tell you what, I'd be shocked. That would mean you probably got 2 running backs in the first. And then, you're talking guys, J.K. Dobbins, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Cam Akers. Like, Cam Akers going before the first half of the second round. That'd be pretty shocking. But if they were gone, then I think you got to look to possibly a receiver. And if they're all 5 are gone, I think that would mean that somebody that the Bucs didn't expect to be there is there. So maybe there's a defensive lineman, maybe a guy Marlon Davidson from Auburn. Maybe there's a guy like that, Terrell Lewis from Alabama, an edge rusher, that they didn't really expect to be there, and that's a possibility if there are no running backs available at 45.
Yeah. So we talked about the nightmare situation, and we've got a little bit more on that for the first round. We'll get into that right after this. But let's talk a little bit more about rounds 2 and 3. If I had to guess how it's going to play out, round 1 is offensive tackle. Round 2 is probably going to be a running back. Round 3, at least for me, is kind of up in the air. I feel like maybe it's a wide receiver, maybe a defensive tackle. I don't know, but let's kind of get into what you think is going to play out for the Bucs in round 2 and 3. I know round 2, we talked about a running back, but what are some other options? And then round 3 altogether, what do you think goes into it?
Yeah, well, a lot of it has to do with what they do in round 1, right? So if you don't choose an offensive tackle in round 1, I think you almost have to in round 2.
Yeah.
Or round 3. You don't have a choice. You can't go into day 3 without an offensive tackle picked, at least one.
Yeah, that's almost something that has to happen. Like, I think that's a guarantee that we can both make right here, is that in picks 1, 2, or 3, the Bucs are going to be drafting an offensive tackle. I feel confident enough to say that, because they just have to.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, then the second round, like I said, you got all those running backs. I would expect one to go in the first round, so maybe one goes before the Bucs pick at 45 in the second round. So let's say that's Swift. So you'd be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers. So, at that rate, they'd probably choose Edwards-Helaire. But then, other options, like I said, Marlon Davidson, Terrell Lewis. Do you want to go receiver in the second round? Maybe a guy like Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State, I believe, could possibly be there. He's a possibility if you wanted to go in the second round. I think receiver in the second's a little too early.
Yeah, I think so, too.
But, back to the third round, I think a receiver is a possibility. Like you said, the third round, I think, is really where it all depends on who's on the board. Like, I think that one could be receiver, that could be safety, that could be D-line, that could be another O-lineman. I know they like Damian Lewis, interior offensive lineman from LSU. So maybe that's the spot for him at 76 there. So, who really knows there? I think, though, once you get into the third round and the fourth round, that's when you're going to start really seeing the buzz about a receiver.
Now, I've seen a lot of arguments about this topic and this person in particular the past few days, and I'm just going to throw the name in the middle of it and see where you think this guy can end up on the Bucs' plans. Not in the second round, I don't think he would be an option, but in the third round, if the pieces fall, maybe, just maybe, Ashton Davis.
I'm a big Ashton Davis fan. I think he is one of the better cover safeties in the draft, I think.
Safety out of Cal, by the way, for people who don't know Ashton Davis.
Yeah, he can just, I think he can just fly all over the field, man. He's an athletic freak, and I think he'd be a pretty good fit in this defense.
He's a good returner as well, right?
Yeah, I think he can offer some value there. I'm not sure how they feel about him, but, if I was the GM, I would definitely consider Ashton Davis there in the third. Second's a little bit too rich, but I would consider him in the third round. I'm not sure if they'll pull the trigger on that, but he would definitely be a guy I would have my eye on.
So let me ask you this, because this has been a very hot topic of conversation. The Buccaneers drafting a safety overall. I've seen so many people say that they need to get a safety, they need help at safety, and it needs to come through the draft. And I've seen so many other people say, what the hell are you talking about? We have 6 people who can play safety. We don't need another one. Where do you fall in this argument?
I think they could probably use a safety, but I don't think they should draft a safety. So I guess I'm sort of in the middle, kind of.
Sign a free agent.
Yeah, I would look to sign a veteran free agent. Even if it's not a high-profile guy, you don't have to go out and sign Tony Jefferson. I think he'd be a great fit, but you don't have to go out and sign that type of guy. You can go out and sign a low-risk veteran. I think a guy like Antoine Bethea, I think he might still be out there. Sign a guy like him. Just somebody to bring in a veteran in the group to get some experience in the secondary.
And what you just brought up there is, I think, the common theme. I feel like we've been saying this since the draft last year. We have so many young guys in the secondary. The Bucs Jason Light used so many draft picks on building that secondary to where it is now. They look solid second half of last year. You kind of have to see if they can keep it consistent and come out good the first half of this year. But throwing another young guy back there, I just do not think is going to help anybody more than it would than getting somebody with an ounce of experience back there to really bring up the overall age of the group, because it still is a ridiculously young group in the Buccaneers backfield. But I'm with you on that. I wouldn't mind drafting a safety if it's a guy like Ashton Davis and the pieces fall into place. And, he can bring something to the table to where if he doesn't start at safety, plug him in at returner where he has that experience and he can do magical things there. I wouldn't mind seeing it, but I don't think they need to draft a safety. I would be happy as hell if they made it out of this draft without a single draft pick going to the secondary.
Yeah, and I think that wouldn't surprise me. Maybe you'll see in the 5th or 6th round they draft like a corner or something, whatever. But, I think like they don't need a safety. I think that the biggest thing is, so Jason Light has picked the safety pretty high almost every year.
Yeah.
So he's picked Justin Evans in the 2nd round, Jordan Whitehead in the 4th round, Mike Edwards in the 3rd round. It's time to give these guys. I know Justin Evans, the injury really clouds this whole thing. If he wasn't injured, I don't think we'd be having many discussions about really a safety. But eventually, you got to let the guys play. Eventually. So Jordan Whitehead is finally, I thought he had a pretty solid year last year. Mike Edwards didn't play, I think, as much as people wanted him to. But, it's the 2nd year, so we'll see with him. But, I think either corner or safety, especially corner, I don't see them addressing really much at all. But like safety in like the 5th round or so, it wouldn't surprise me. Ashton Davis wouldn't shock me, but it would mean that they're not really confident in one of Edwards or Whitehead, and they don't think Evans is going to be healthy. Because if you're investing another top 100 pick in a safety, that means you don't think the secondary is any good. So.
Now, I know we kind of covered this with Trevor. I'm going to bring it up again just because we are a little bit closer to the draft. No chance they go quarterback in the 3rd round.
I wouldn't say no chance, but I think it's very unlikely. I think the only chance would probably be Jacob Eason. Partially because I think Jalen Hurts is going to be gone by the time they pick in the 3rd round.
You think Eason can fall all the way to the 3rd?
Yeah, he should. I don't think he's that great. His leadership ability has been sort of in question. Just how he acts in games, like his maturity is really in question. Sort of like a Bo Callahan almost from the movie Draft Day. Big arm guy, he's got all the tools, but there's just something off. So I think that could really hurt him, his stock, and I think he'll probably be there. I wouldn't pick him, and I don't think they will pick him. Jake Fromm just doesn't have the arm. I know we speak about scheme fit. It's not a big deal. Like he signed Tom Brady or whatever, so it can't be a big deal. Well, Jake Fromm is even less of an arm than Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Bruce Arians is going to want somebody with an arm. So if they're going to draft a quarterback, it's going to be on day 3.
And another point that somebody had brought up that I think is excellent. I think it really drives the point home on just the thought process of this entire team going on right now, it's win now mode. It's been win now mode since Arians got here. They've been trying to get everything together, putting the pieces together. This year, it truly feels like we're as close as we have been to win now mode, right? We have all the pieces we need to, maybe some fine-tuning throughout the rest of free agency and the draft, but the Bucs want to win now. And somebody made this excellent point. Tom Brady is not here for 2 years to groom his successor. He is here to win games. So I think that just kind of supports that the Bucs are not going to be looking to go quarterback in the early rounds at all. I think if they do, maybe 5th, 6th round, use one of their last picks on it overall. But I just don't think in round 3 they would get any of those guys. Even a Jacob Eason, if he's available, I think they'll pass and get something else. But let's go over nightmare situation for round 1, and then we're going to jump into your mock draft. So I'm going to tell you mine, and then I'm going to toss it to you. Nightmare situation for the Buccaneers, day 1 of the draft, pick number 14. They draft a running back. That's it. If they decide to draft Jonathan Taylor at 14, I'm going to throw my computer out the window, and we're not going to do this show ever again. That's how that'll go.
Okay. Well, okay, so what are the circumstances, though, here? Because are you talking, like, they draft a running back over somebody you like, or is everybody's gone?
Let's say OTs are off the board, right? All the OTs are off the board. Josh Jones is still there because I feel like he's going to be there. But your big 4 are gone. Your Javon Kinlaw is gone. You've got the choice of either...
Derek Brown's gone?
Derek Brown is gone. You've got the choice of either K'Lavon Chason or running back. I think if they choose a running back over anybody that they could have gotten in the trenches, because I've made it clear, if the Bucs decide to stay at 14, which I don't think they'll do, you don't think they'll stay at 14? No, I'm with Trevor. It wouldn't surprise me if they traded up.
Okay, so you think your prediction is that they're going to move up?
Yep, I think they'll trade with Jacksonville, go to 9.
Okay, who do you think? Let's do a little thing for you. Who do you think they're going to target? Because, I mean, at Jacksonville at 9, you're probably looking at 1 or 2 of the tackles off the board. There will definitely probably be 2 tackles there for you.
If they go to 9, I think they're looking at Jedrick Wills.
Okay.
I like Jedrick Wills. He's I wouldn't say my favorite out of the big 4, but he's up there for me. It goes Wirfs, Wills, Thomas, Becton. That's my order for the big 4.
Okay.
So I think if they go to 9, they would be looking at a guy like Wills, maybe Thomas if he's there, depending on whoever's off the board in front of them, because we feel like some OTs are going to go in the top 10. But nightmare situation, they stay at 14, they lose every good pick they could have had, and then they draft a running back over who they should have.
Would you rather draft like? So well, all right, let me ask you this then before I give mine. What would you be more mad at? Drafting Jonathan Taylor at 14 or drafting Henry Ruggs at 14? To me, it would be Taylor because wide receiver is more valuable than a running back.
Yeah, I guess.
Henry
It
Ruggs,
would be. It
Henry
would
Ruggs
still.
in that offense,
I had to
like
really. I just had to really think
fair.
about that. You stumped me on that one. That was a good question, but I'm gonna go with probably Taylor.
Yeah.
We saw.
I think Ruggs in that offense. Oh man.
And Trevor just put out that mock draft where the Bucs ended up picking Ruggs at 14. Right? He broke the draft internet with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that would make the Bucs offense. I don't know if we were talking about that on the air, not with Trevor, but he was basically saying to us, like,
who would they stop?
If you draft him, there's no defensive personnel that's designed to cover all those guys.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody big enough and strong enough to cover Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and there's nobody fast enough to cover Henry Ruggs all at the same time. Right. And then you add in Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard with Ronald Jones coming out of the backfield and Tom Brady throwing the freaking football.
16-0, baby.
It would be insane. Would it be the smartest pick? Probably not. But you want to talk about the funnest pick? Probably.
Absolutely.
That'd be the most fun pick.
Let me just close it with this, because I've been wanting to say it and I keep forgetting. We talked about a nightmare situation. All the offensive tackles are gone. I have said before on this show, and I'll say it again, I would be totally okay if all the offensive tackles are gone and the Buccaneers draft any of the big defensive linemen. First round, it's got to be trenches one way or another. That's the way that I see it. Anything else is just a bad pick.
Okay. All right.
Your nightmare situation for round 1.
Well, I obviously the same situation. Like you said, all 4 offensive tackles are gone. Javon Kinlaw is gone. Derek Brown is gone. Isaiah Simmons is gone. It's another name I'm throwing out there. So like those guys are all gone. So you got like a Josh Jones, Henry Ruggs is still there, Jonathan Taylor's there, Kayvon Chaison's there, and they draft Austin Jackson at 14, offensive tackle from USC. I just do not think Austin Jackson is ready for the NFL. I don't, especially on a win now team, you're going to have to sit this guy for at least a year. And if you start him, you're not going to like the results. I just don't like him. Nothing personal against him. I just don't. I don't think he's personally ready for the NFL, especially not being a top 15 pick.
So this guy has a first round grade.
Basically, yeah. Well, not really from me, but the consensus that I've seen is that Austin Jackson is going to go in the first round at some point. It's probably late first, but I just hope that they don't fall in love with him at 14 there, because man, that would be brutal. That would be especially picking him over a guy like Josh Jones. I'd almost rather Jonathan Taylor at 14 than Austin Jackson. I just think that in the second round there's probably a tackle there that you can get at 45 that's better than Austin Jackson right now.
Really hope you don't show up on Freezing Cold Takes this time in 2 years.
We will see.
Quentin Nelson's his way into the league.
Yeah, that would be my luck too. So,
so let's get into the mock draft. This is the moment that people have been waiting for. It is the title of the episode, and it is something that we do around this time every single year on the CFP pre-draft show. It is Evan's top 15 mock draft. Now, normally you do a top 10 mock draft because the Buccaneers usually have a top 10 pick, but this year they do not, so we're just going to go top 15.
Yep, yeah, but you guys get a little bit extra picks because the Bucs, won a few more games. So.
Look at that. A little extra premium content out of the Philly sports fan. Let's get into it, my man. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, one thing I will say, isn't it funny how it just works year to year? So the Bucs had the 5th overall pick, and then they win 2 more games than they did last year, and now they're at 14.
Yeah, right?
There's such a difference year to year, whether teams are good or bad,
That's the thing. How many 7 and 9 teams are there between us and the top 10?
Well, I think the Colts were at 13. It says the 49ers, obviously, but that was from the DeForest Buckner trade. So that's actually the Colts. So the Colts, I think, went 7 and 9. I think the Raiders went 7 and 9.
Cleveland went 7 and 9.
Did they?
Yeah.
You sure?
I am almost positive the Browns went 7 and 9 this year. I can bust out the Google machine and tell you.
I think then Jacksonville is probably the one that went 6 and 10. So the Bucs, if they won,
Browns
all the
went 6 and 10. My bad. I am wrong. I will.
So, okay. Yeah, like I said, I was pretty sure. Let me see. The Jets, I don't think went Jets. Let me sorry guys, for you guys waiting for the mock draft. You gotta wait a few more seconds. But
we should have had our stuff together. What kind of professional show is this? What the hell?
The Jets went 7 and 9. So if the Bucs won all the tiebreakers, the highest they would have been was 11.
Yeah.
So, but I believe they won the tiebreaker over the Broncos and the Falcons, who both went 7 and 9. So they could have been 16.
Yeah.
But it ended up being 14. So, all right, let's get into this. Number 1, Cincinnati Bengals. It's obvious, right? Chase Young. I'm just kidding.
Yep.
Joe Burrow's the pick there, quarterback from LSU. I wish, since they're having technical difficulties with this whole virtual draft thing, I wish they kind of announced the first 2 picks already, just so we can just start the draft at 3 and save a lot more time. So 2 is Chase Young, obviously a edge rusher from Ohio State to Redskins. Some chatter about them possibly trading down. I just don't think they're going to pass up Young. And number 3 is the hot pick, the pick that could be traded. They could be kept. There's, it could be 3 or 4 teams maybe gunning for that pick because it's right in front of Miami. It's right in front of LA.
Open for business, too.
Maybe a team like the Panthers, like a dark horse team, wants to move up. Maybe like the Jaguars want to move up.
Let me ask you this really quickly. What about the Falcons? We have seen that the Falcons are allegedly going to be the most aggressive team in the draft. Do you think they could maybe risk it all and move up to that number 3 spot?
Man, I don't know, because I don't know if Detroit would want to move down that much.
Fair.
I just don't think Detroit would want to move all the way down to 16. Yeah, I just don't see it. So I have personally, I don't do trades in my mock drafts. Really, I did trades 1 year. I didn't really like it. I was like, this is weird.
It's tough to predict. I mean, who can predict a trade?
Yep. Yeah, and every time you do, it might be the right spot, but it's a totally different team, and whatever. So I have the Lions obviously staying at 3 and picking Jeffrey Okudah, cornerback from Ohio State. I think it's a pretty much obvious pick there. 4 with the Giants. This is where the draft gets interesting, right? Because, I mean, they could go offensive line. They could go Isaiah Simmons. They could go Derek Brown. They could trade out. Maybe LA wants to, swap 6 and 4. Who knows? I have them, breaking the hearts of many Bucs fans and taking Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle from Alabama. I think that they realize that Wills is probably the most pro-ready tackle. He's my number 1 rated tackle. He's probably the most pro-ready tackle in the draft. And, I just think that Dave Gettleman sitting there, I would take Isaiah Simmons personally, but I just think him sitting there, I think he's going to really fall in love with Wills. Which actually is what I actually changed. If you recall, I told you what my mock draft was after the show we recorded last week.
Yeah.
And it has changed since. So I will tell you guys right now, I had Jedrick Wills going to the Bucs last week, but something changed. So here we go. 5, Miami. Possibly like the most exciting pick, I think. Right?
It really could be anything.
This could be, when you're talking about quarterbacks, man, you're talking about 2 quarterbacks plus the possibility of an offensive tackle. Man, if the Dolphins really love Jordan Love there and they think that they can trade out from 18 to 13, like you said, right in front of the Bucs to get Jordan Love and pick a tackle at 5, man, that'd be nuts. I personally am buying into the smokescreen that they like Justin Herbert and they're scared to death of Tua, so I have them selecting Justin Herbert, quarterback from Oregon. Now at 6, LA, I was tempted to give them a tackle, but I think they're going to be, in that new stadium, they're starved for a guy to come in and save their franchise. I think it's a perfect situation for a guy like him to walk into, so I have Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback from Alabama, going to the Chargers at 6.
Now, regardless of who it is, and this has nothing to do with your mock draft, this is just real-life stipulation, you think the Chargers do end up pulling the trigger and going quarterback, regardless of who's available?
Yeah, I think so. I do. I think they would like an offensive lineman, but I think they realize that the offensive line class is deep, and I also don't think that they want to go into the season with just Tyrod Taylor. Right. I think Tyrod Taylor's going to start. I like Tyrod Taylor.
He was your guy. We talked about way before all the Jameis stuff. You talked about the possibility of Tyrod Taylor in Tampa.
Yeah, really like him. But I don't think they want just Tyrod Taylor without a future plan there. I think they're not going to be in the top 10 next year probably.
Yeah.
So they're not really going to be in line to get a big-time quarterback. Surprise pick here could be Jordan Love if they get scared of Tua. They get really scared of his medicals. The surprise pick could be Jordan Love over Tua. So we're moving on to 7. Isaiah Simmons, linebacker from Clemson. This is where his fall stops. Like I said, I considered it at 4 for the Giants. I had him there at 4 for a long time, but decided to switch it up. I think the Chargers might consider him, which that defense with Isaiah Simmons would be.
Oh, it'd be crazy, man.
One of the best in the league. I mean, you're talking Derwin James, Chris Harris, Desmond King, who they might trade, but Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram, and then you add you add Isaiah Simmons to that group. Man, that's crazy. 8 Arizona Cardinals. This is danger here for the Bucs, right? Because you're looking and you're like, ooh, the Cardinals could use an offensive tackle.
These, I think you could say the same for the next 5 teams on the board. Is this team could use an offensive tackle?
I mean, I don't really view I think Jacksonville could maybe
not Jacksonville at least, but I think the rest of them. You got Cleveland, you got New York in there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the Raiders aren't taking one, but so here's the danger zone, right? Because this is where you could see that run, just like you said. You got Arizona. One's already gone in my mock draft, right? There's 4 of the big ones. One's already gone. You have Arizona there. You have Cleveland there, and you have New York there. All need tackles. So the 4 could be gone. I personally, though, luckily for a lot of Bucs fans, I believe that the Cardinals are going to select Derek Brown, interior defensive lineman from Auburn. A few reasons for this. One, I do sort of believe Matt Miller's report where he said that, if Derek Brown's there at 8, that you could basically pencil him into Arizona. Also, if you look at their defense, man, it's bad.
Yeah.
Their defensive depth chart right now, they need help.
They got Chandler Jones doing it by himself.
Yeah, pretty much. Derek Brown there would be a good fit. And also, Peter Schrager, who has been mocking Derek Brown to the Cardinals for a long time now, is pretty close friends with Cliff Kingsbury, and he was one of the first ones last year to really say that they were taking Kyler Murray. So he continued to mock Derek Brown. His latest mock is Derek Brown to the Cardinals, so I'm going to roll with Derek Brown to the Cardinals.
Nice.
Number 9, got another defensive lineman going off the board, Javon Kinlaw. I think the Jaguars are really going to fall in love with him, and they could go receiver here. This could be the first receiver, but I just think at the end of the day that they're gonna look and really want to improve the trenches. They lost Calais Campbell, they traded him away. They're gonna lose Yannick Ngakoue. So I think Josh Allen and Javon Kinlaw on the defensive line should be a pretty good duo.
Now, really quickly for Jacksonville, I think the possibility of a wide receiver might have gone up a little bit in the past 24 hours because they're looking to trade their one wide receiver, right?
Are they rumored to trade one?
Yeah, they're rumored to trade Marquise Lee.
Well, no, they released Marquise Lee.
Oh, they released him. There we go. My bad. That's why I'm not the best at following other teams. There you go.
He didn't play at all in 2018 and had 3 catches in 2019. So what are they really missing out on?
That's fair.
So 10 Browns. Here's another danger zone, right, where the tackle could go off the board. And here there is a tackle off the board. I think it's Tristan Wirfs. The Browns reported number 1 target is Tristan Wirfs, so this is a dream come true for them. There's some talk that maybe they could trade out of here if Tristan Wirfs isn't available. In this scenario, Wirfs is there, and he's the guy. So now you're left with 2 offensive tackles for those keeping track. 2 offensive tackles, and Brown and Kinlaw are both gone. So 11 to the Jets run on offensive tackles is going to continue. Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle from Louisville. I think the Jets really like him. Joe Douglas is there. Joe Douglas came from Philadelphia. Philadelphia has been notoriously known to draft offensive tackles pretty high. So I believe that's the pick there. 12 with the Raiders. First receivers off the board. Jerry Jeudy. I think that CeeDee Lamb is probably the better receiver. But I think I'm looking at Mike Mayock. And I just think Jeudy is the type of guy that Mike Mayock would fall in love with. So I think in this case, Judy's probably their guy. Even though the Raider way would be to draft Henry Ruggs. But I just think Jeudy is going to be the guy. Apparently John Gruden wants Ruggs. Mayock wants Jeudy. I think Mayock will win that battle.
Push comes to shove.
13, 49ers, another receiver comes off the board. It's CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver from Oklahoma. And the 49ers are celebrating right now because I think this is their number 1 guy. They get another weapon for that Kyle Shanahan offense, a weapon that they need to pair with Deebo Samuel. Give Jimmy G another option there, and I think they're extremely happy.
And just a side note with San Francisco, currently trying to right some wrongs in the cap space situation, Quan Alexander, that big money linebacker, is on the trade block.
Yeah, reportedly. The big thing with them is they don't have any picks. Like, they have 13 and 31, and they don't pick again until the 4th round.
Jeez.
Like, they don't have a 2nd or 3rd round pick, so that's a long time to wait. I understand 2 firsts is nice, but, like, I think Marquise Goodwin is probably going to be traded, wide receiver, for like a 4th or 5th round pick. They're just trying to recoup some picks there, so they could possibly be a team to trade down. Like I said, I don't do trades in my mocks, but at 13, they could be a team that really wants to trade down.
Yeah.
So 14, the moment we've all been waiting for, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Drum roll, please.
They're sitting at 14, and the pick is Andrew Thomas, offensive tackle from Georgia. I think this is a pretty slam dunk pick here if it turns out this way. I think the Bucs are extremely happy with Thomas. He can play both the left and right side. He's an experienced starter, one of the more pro-ready guys. I think he can step in right away and be productive. The knock on him is that, sort of what you see is what you get. I think he can grow to be a good offensive lineman. I don't know if he can grow to be a great offensive lineman. That's the knock with Andrew Thomas. But, you want to talk about a guy that can come in, just steady the ship. I think he's the guy. So Jason Light is happy to not have to move up at all and stay at 14 and be able to select Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. So they get their tackle.
Now, we went into a lot of detail a little bit earlier about Mekhi Becton. What do you think gets Becton off the board before Thomas? Is it just that pure upside, or is it really just the way that things fall?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the two. I think it's the upside. I think literally people think, like, out of all 4 of the tackles, Jedrick Wills is probably, if you want a guy that can plug and play, Jedrick Wills is your guy, which I think that'd probably be perfect for the Bucs because he's a natural right tackle.
Yeah.
But Jedrick Wills wasn't available. So I think, but a lot of people say if you want the best possible offensive lineman in 3 years, it's Mekhi Becton. And I think the traits that people are looking at, it's traits that NFL teams love. They just love. And I think that gives him the edge over Andrew Thomas. Apparently, Rappaport said, like, Andrew Thomas is being one of the most overlooked players in the draft, which I don't really get because, the consensus is he's going to be a top 14 pick. I'd be shocked if Thomas is there and let's say nobody else is, like Kinlaw and Brown and the 3 other tackles are gone. I'd be pretty shocked that the Bucs went in another direction.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think the Bucs are extremely happy. I don't think Thomas is their number 1 guy, but I think they have a high grade on him. I think they like him. So.
And I think that's the consensus as well, is that any one of those 4, you're going to get a stud. The way that it falls.
If they end up with any one of the 4, Derek Brown or Javon Kinlaw, they're happy.
Yeah. I would like to believe that if the Bucs, in my mind, if the Bucs want to trade up into the top 10, let's say they get that number 9 spot, I like them going after a guy like Wills or Wirfs if they're both still available. But picking at 14, I think the possibility of either Becton or Andrew Thomas falling to you is pretty good. Even if all 4 of those guys are off of the board, you still have a chance to land a top-tier defensive lineman. I like the way things look for the Bucs at 14.
Yeah. So it's probably in a perfect world, Jedrick Wills falls to the Bucs. But
yeah, right. But I doubt that happens.
This is probably a really good scenario. Like I said, they don't have to give up any future draft capital to be able to move up or whatever. There's no need. Moving on to close out the top 15 mock draft. It's Henry Ruggs, the speedster from Alabama, to the Denver Broncos. I think this is a slam dunk as well if he's there. I think some team might end up moving up for Ruggs. I think that he might be a tad overrated, but I still think he's worthy of a top 20 selection. I think his speed is unmatched in this class, and he's just an explosive player. He just really is. I think that he's going to be a good NFL starter, and it's exactly what Denver needs for Drew Lock. So, other notable picks that I had, C.J. Henderson, 16 to the Falcons, who they're rumored to want to trade up for. So, Falcons fans, you're welcome, giving you their guy, and you don't have to give up anything. I don't really buy. Well, I do sort of buy that the Panthers like Henderson, but I don't think they're going to choose Henderson over Isaiah Simmons, who in my mock is just sitting there. So, Caleb Von Chason to the Cowboys, like I said, Josh Jones to the Dolphins, Jordan Love 23 to the New England Patriots. They get their guy after Tom Brady. Jonathan Taylor, 26 to the Dolphins. It's the first and only running back I have off the board. So that would mean for the Bucs on day 2, it would be DeAndre Swift, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers. Good chance 1 or maybe even 2 are sitting there for them. So it'll definitely be an interesting day 2 if that were to happen. But that's how my mock shaped out. I'm pretty comfortable in the top 15. Top really 20, I'm pretty comfortable. Once you get in the late 20s, it's kind of because even once you get in the late 20s, those picks are even more likely to possibly be traded. So a team like Seattle, who I believe hasn't made a first round pick or whatever, or has only made like one in like the past 5 years because they just traded every year. Me not predicting trades hurts that, but and maybe even somebody moves up in front of the Patriots, for Jordan Love. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, I'm pretty comfortable with how it all played out.
Hey, solid work, man. Really enjoy it, and I'm glad that you have served as our draft analyst throughout this whole process, because I'm sure the people who know I am not a draft snob by any means.
I try.
I enjoy the draft, but I definitely do not spend as much time working as hard as you do. A lot of the guys who put out more draft content do as well. So I'm glad that you were able to serve as that for us. Thanks, buddy. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Like I said, there's a lot of great draft guys out there. Like one of the best is Trevor Sikkema, right? So if you guys haven't, go already and check out that episode with Trevor, the last episode. So all your draft coverage for the Bucs, these 2 episodes should have covered it.
Absolutely. Everything you need and more, as we are just days away from the NFL draft. Evan, your final thoughts as we approach the draft. Our last episode before it. So what have you got for the people?
Well, I do think that the Bucs are, they're in a spot to where their night could go really good in round 1, or it could go really bad. I don't think there's an in between. I think they are either going to get one of the top 4 or top 2 defensive linemen and be extremely happy, or they're going to end up picking somebody that they're okay with picking. I know they have Jonathan Taylor as RB1, but I don't think they're thrilled taking him at 14. So I think this could either go really good or really bad. I do think they really like Josh Jones, and I think they view Josh Jones as a definite first-round pick. So keep that in mind, because if all 4 are gone and the top defensive linemen are gone, my prediction would probably be Josh Jones. So we'll see. I think 2nd round, 3rd round, that's my favorite day of the draft, by the way. I don't know why.
No, that's where you get all of your studs. That is where you see most of your
2
guys.
rounds, so there's more chances. But, the picks are faster, even though with this year, who knows. But
yeah, right.
I just think that, in the 2nd and 3rd round, they're going to keep looking to add, more offensive pieces. And like I said, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is my top-ranked running back. So I hope the Buccaneers could have a chance to get my offensive OT1 and RB1 in the same draft, which like I said, this team just does not draft who I want them to, ever. So that would be a shocker to me. But, Jonathan Taylor is my RB4, and Mekhi Becton's my OT4. So instead of my OT1 and RB1, they could be drafting my OT4 and RB4. So we'll see how it goes.
Something Bucs fans are all too familiar with is Jason Light and how he handles the draft. He might not have a flawless track record of picks, but he damn sure knows how to play the game, and it definitely makes it interesting, especially for fans of Tampa Bay. But ladies and gentlemen, that's just about going to do it for this episode of the Cannon Fire podcast. Thank you so much for listening or watching with video on YouTube. And give us some feedback on the new logo. You might have noticed we got some new digs around here. Updated the logo a little bit to get rid of that alarm clock font, which means updated merchandise. It's on the way. We have to see what we can make happen. But make sure you follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. You can get a great look at the new logo and everything else that we have set up as well. So make sure you do that. You can follow myself on Instagram and Twitter at Redicus. If you follow me, I'll follow you back. You can follow my co-host Evan on Twitter at EvanNFL. And you can find him on Instagram at BucksWave, the #1 Buccaneers fan page. And a little bit later this week, you are appearing on another podcast talking some draft.
Yeah, I am. Tomorrow night I'll be on with Robert Green on the Outside Leverage podcast. So, really excited. Robert Green, who is good friends with our buddy Derek from What the Buck, and Chris Fisher from Bucks Brief, or formerly Bucks Brief. So yeah, I'm really excited to be joining him tomorrow night, and it should be a good time. So definitely, be on the lookout, and I'm sure we'll have a link up to be able to share it.
Hell yeah, make sure you guys go check that out. Outside Leverage with Robert Green. As Evan brought up, he does really good work. I've really enjoyed his podcast. It's relatively new, but all the episodes he's put out has been top quality. His guests are phenomenal. He had Big Nasty. He had Thomas Bassinger, which was a controversial interview because we know Thomas Bassinger is probably the most controversial figure in Tampa sports media right now. But that was a good conversation that they had. He had our buddy Chris Fisher on there as well, Derek Fournette. They did a multicast with the old school Buccaneers podcasting OGs. That was pretty cool. So make sure you go tune in and check it out. Support our good guy, Evan. Last but not least, before we get out of here, I have to give a quick shout out to our sponsors at Pinecrest Printing and Signs. The world is in a crazy place right now. You are being urged to stay in your homes. And people have talked about reopening up non-essential businesses, but right now it's up in the air. Regardless, you are stuck at home with nothing to do. If you have a podcast, if you have a brand that you're trying to start up, Pinecrest Printing is your #1 source for anything and everything that has to do with expanding your brand in the most professional way possible. It is the perfect time to call them, 813-684-5444, and talk to their experienced staff about anything and everything that you need to accelerate your brand. These guys handle apparel. They can do stickers. They will do signs of any size, any material, full vehicle wraps, apparel, which I think I've already mentioned. I mean, you could say it all 10 times over, and they are going to make sure they get it done with the highest quality possible. I have to personally reach out to them and see what we can do about getting some updated merchandise, but none of that can happen until you guys buy the merchandise that we have already. Shirts and stickers are on sale. All proceeds go towards the new shirt fund. That's what we're calling it. But Pinecrest Printing and Signs, our buddies over there, RJ, have been doing it since 2001, and they will continue to serve the Tampa Bay business community, staying open during these trying times. You can check out the website at pinecrestprinting.com or give them a call. The number one more time is 813-684-5444. I am Rhett Matthew, signing off for Evan Wanish, and we appreciate you listening to our show. We will talk to you after the draft, and go Bucks.